Hello, my little GOPO patriots. Welcome back. We're going to finish talking about sections 3 and 4 today, talking about models of voting behavior and then the Electoral College. So the framers built the roadblocks to ensure the system was not too democratic. We are not a democracy. We are a republic because they wanted the idea of majority rules, minority rights. If you have too much of a democracy, if we vote on every single thing, the people, that could be bad because of the fact that you can eventually have mob rule, and mob rule tends to turn into tyranny. So states get to set the rules for elections and voting, and they get to, even though the founding fathers also made it so that the republic could be protected. So they gave a little bit of freedom there, but they do have a system where basically it can't be too democratic. Americans vote for more than 500,000 positions in local, state, and federal governments. And by allowing rule at all these different levels, it gives a little bit power back to the people in that way as well. But like we talked about with the last one, the last section, there can be some barriers to voting, including registration requirements, voter ID laws, election days being on work days, and then felony just disenfranchisement, which I already talked about. Felonies can't vote. So how do citizens make their decisions in voting making? These are basically the several different ways. Number one, rational choice voting. Voting based on what a citizen believes is in his or her best interest. This is what I've talked about before, where you basically say, okay, there's 3 policies that are super important to me, and this is my beliefs on them. Who's going to make these things happen? That's rational choice theory. You're being rational. You're thinking about policy. But most people tend to vote based on either retrospective voting or prospective voting. Retrospective is the kind of, you're up, voting booth and you're kind of singing that song, "What have you done for me lately? Mm-mm-mm. Ooh, yeah." That's retrospective voting. You look at what the politician has done for you and see if you should vote for him or not. If she's a politician that you're looking at and you're like, oh my gosh, she's the worst, I don't want to vote for her, then that's retrospective voting because you're like, oh, she did terrible things and she's no good. That's retrospective voting. Prospective voting is when you're like, I'm going to pick them because they made awesome promises to me and I think they're going to keep them all. Party line voting is very simple. What are they? I'm a Republican, they're a Republican, done. Or let's see, I'm a Democrat, they're a Democrat, done. That's party line voting. That's pretty simple. So we're going to skip that for now. And we're going to look at the Electoral College. Ooh, that controversial thing that we've been seeing in these last few weeks. All right. So just an introduction about everything. Remember, in order to be president, you got to be 35 years old, born in the U.S., and reside here for 14 years. And once you fit those requirements and you decide to run for president, you don't officially get picked by the people, you get picked by the Electoral College. And the Electoral College is through the general election. Now, you have to get the nomination. That's the campaign phase, phase 1. You have to get nominated, like we learned in the 13.1 notes. Sorry, the chapter 13, part 1 notes. Once you get that nomination from that, you get to be that one candidate for the Democrats or that one candidate for the Republicans. You go through the general election. And that's when you get picked by the Electoral College. Now, a lot of people might try to, before they officially try to even get nominated or be one of the nominees, they'll do what's known as an exploratory committee to see if they actually have a shot at even becoming the nominee for a party or becoming president of the United States. So in the nomination process, and we talked about this before, so this is a reiteration, candidates from the same party compete for the party's nomination. Most states hold primaries, some hold caucuses, but there's 2 choices with a primary. It's just basically a list of all the people to choose from, and you choose the delegates that will officially vote for them in the summer to be that one candidate for the Democrats, for instance. If you have an open primary, that means you can vote on, it doesn't matter what party you're registered as, you can choose one ballot or another. So like if you have, let's say you're registered as a Republican, but you want to vote on the Democratic primary, you can say that and they'll let you. But if you're in a closed primary, there's some states that are closed, whatever you're registered as, that's the ballot you get no matter what. Now, a caucus, I almost compare those to like a pyramid thing where there's at a local level, they'll have 100 people who want to be a delegate, and they'll say, okay, here's 10 people to send up to the state level. And at the state level, they'll say, okay, of these 10 people, we have to pick 5 to go to the national level and be delegates to officially choose the one nominee for the Democrats or Republicans. But they do serve the same purpose, getting those delegates to the national level to make the nomination choice. I like this picture. It makes me laugh. So a lot of these candidates, when they're trying to win the nomination, whether it's or win one of the phases, whether it's the nomination or the actual general election, will go and meet local people and try to be one with the people and be one with their local traditions. And as the saying goes, all politics is local. You got to win them at the local levels, and it works its way up. This is a picture of former President George W. Bush eating nachos, and those nachos look delicious, I must say. And a lot of times when they go for their nominations, they start early. If you notice, this is April 13th, 2015. The election isn't until November of 2016, and he already announces it's basically they run forever. I believe Elizabeth Warren was about just shy of 2 years before the actual election when she announced she was running too. So let's go to the general election. Let's say, like with Biden, he was the one nominee for the Democrats and Trump was the one nominee for the Republicans in the 2020 election. Now they're up against each other, not people of their own party. So now they don't have to necessarily appeal. Biden doesn't have to appeal to the Democrats. Trump doesn't have to appeal to the Republicans. They have to appeal to the floaty dancers, the ones in the middle, the independent voters who haven't really made a decision. So they definitely will try to get as many people, not only to swing their way, but they also need to work on mobilizing their own base to get out and vote as well. So here's what happens with the Electoral College. So voters do not cast ballots directly for the president. I know when you go and vote, you would fill in Trump or you'd fill in Biden. But what happens is you're basically voting for the electors. So let's say, let's look at in 2020, Biden won Illinois 55-43. So he is going to get all 20 electors that will pledge to vote for him in the official vote. So the state of Illinois, the Democratic Party in the state of Illinois will pick 20 hardcore Democrats who will be the electors to officially vote for the president of the United States, and they are pledging to give their votes to Joe Biden. Now, there are 538 total votes because each state gets as many electoral votes as they have representatives in the House and members in the Senate. So there's 535 total members of Congress, but they have 538 because Washington, D.C. gets 3. So to get over that halfway point of 538, you need 270 votes to win. If no one gets that, the House of Representatives decides, and each state in the House gets 1 vote. That has happened 3 times in American history, but it's been a while. Candidates do not need to win the popular vote. That's happened several times. It happened in 2000. It happened in 2016. Because the candidates get all of the electoral votes for a state, except Maine and Nebraska, they do it a little bit differently. And that's known as our winner-take-all system. So like with Biden, he only won 55% of the popular vote in Illinois, but he's getting all 20 electoral votes in Illinois. Trump only won 51% of the popular vote in Florida, and he's getting all 29 electoral votes. That's the winner-take-all system. So how do you win the Electoral College? You basically don't go to the red and blue states. If you know that a state is going to be blue or going to be red, you don't need to go there. You don't see too many candidates coming to Illinois. You don't see too many candidates going to California or New York. They're hardcore blue. You don't see them going to Tennessee or the Dakotas. Those are hardcore red, and they're not that big anyway. They are going to go to what are known as battleground states or swing states. So a battleground state is, okay, this is where the polling is super close, and that's where we need to go. And battleground states tend to be what are called swing states that constantly move back and forth between the Democratic and the Republican ticket. So here, looking at the 2016 election, you can see this is what the Electoral College looks like. You can see that states like Illinois, Texas, California have huge numbers, where states like the Dakotas and Wyoming and Alaska have smaller numbers because it's based on population. So some people, what a lot of people, especially since the president has won without winning the popular vote, think, well, what do we do? How do we get rid of the Electoral College, or how do we change it? So it's bad because sometimes, yes, the popular vote doesn't pick the president, but you also need to remember we're not a democracy, we are a republic. And the republic was meant to, and we are a federalist republic, meaning we have federalism. So it's meant to protect the states, especially the smaller states, because without the Electoral College, these candidates would just go to big cities. And that's how they could win elections, is just pander to the big cities. This way, smaller states get say, and policies are promised and created not only with urban areas in mind, but also suburban and rural areas as well. So that's the point of the Electoral College. But again, there is some bad with it too, because sometimes, and this has happened, twice in the past 2 decades, the president who wins the popular vote doesn't, or the candidate who wins the popular vote doesn't necessarily win the presidency. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Sure. I will see you later.